Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan, and I've not actually seen you guys in a couple of days, not made a video in a couple of days, and that's because I've been enjoying the new FIFA game. I know we're not here to talk about FIFA, but it's one of my favourite games, FIFA 21, so if any of you guys have been playing it, tell me in the comments or via Twitter who you've been playing with, what kind of players you've been using, because I'm always very happy to talk about that game, really enjoying it. But we're not here to talk about that. Like I said, we're talking about today buying, selling, keeping and avoiding for Game Week 5. Your favourite series on this channel, my favourite series on this channel as well. So do remember to give a big thumbs up if you're enjoying this series, and make sure you subscribe if you've not done already. Turn those notification bells on, make sure you don't miss a single video, and we're going to help you win your mini leagues, or try our best to help you win your mini leagues anyway. But this video is about making excellent transfer decisions. So how does buy, sell, keep, avoid work? Well, players that you're going to be buying, players that you probably don't have but you should consider bringing in. Sell players that you probably have but you should consider removing from your team. Keep players that you probably already have but you should also keep them, and avoid players that you probably don't have but maybe a lot of people are bringing them in, and you should probably avoid doing it even though maybe a lot of other people are. So it's all about making some good transfer decisions that aren't necessarily obvious. So, you know, sometimes going against the grain a little bit, sometimes going against the obvious, and sort of looking in details, looking at the stats and trying to figure out the best players to bring in, the best players to remove, etc, etc. So last week we didn't get on so well, as you can see. In terms of the sells and the avoids, absolutely smashed it. So on sell, obviously Werner blanked, Doherty didn't even play, Don didn't even play, Mount didn't even play, which was, for a lot of them, that was the risk, I thought. So Dunn and Mount, I said avoid because I didn't think they were actually going to play very much football, and it turns out neither of them got any minutes. And Werner blanked, which I expected. Doherty, you know, he didn't start. I thought he probably would start, but he's definitely an avoid for me anyway. Yeah, he's not going to get many clean sheets, is he? And yeah, Werner blanked. By Jimenez, Zaha blanked, unfortunately. Zaha still got some good fixtures, and I think Jimenez has got some good fixtures as well, to be fair. And Mitrovic and no, who were the others? Yeah, Mitrovic and Jimenez. Yeah, they blanked on the keeps as well. So not an amazing performance on the buys and the keeps, but the sell and avoids has been my best week yet. So good stuff there. Let's try and improve on that, particularly the buys and the keeps, which are a little bit harder to identify, but let's see how we can do. So let's start off, but before we start off with this week's picks, I do want to say that a couple of these players do have minor knocks or minor injuries that may rule them out. I don't think many of these injuries are serious. Hopefully we're going to find out some more information near the start of the week, but do keep your eye on information, because obviously players are going to come back from international break with a few knocks, a few injuries. We don't always know exactly what's going on there, so do keep an eye on that. But let's start off with some buys. So Ben Chilwell, a bit of a risky one to start us off today, because, you know, this is based on 1 week of football, I guess. But I do want to make sure I honour my promise of this series being trying to identify high-scoring players before everyone on the game owns them, rather than just picking players that already everyone owns, kind of thing, the obvious ones. If I was going to go for an obvious choice this week, you'd be saying, oh yeah, buy Dominic Calvert-Lewin, buy Heung-min Son, but a lot of us have already got those players already. So let's go with the non-obvious. So currently Ben Chilwell is sitting on around 8.9 ownership, but I think there is a good chance he becomes, you know, one of the most valuable FPL defenders in the game. So let me first explain why Chilwell is a risk, because I start off by saying he's a risk, rather than a must-have player anyway. So firstly, we've only got 1 game's worth of data on him as a Chelsea player in the Premier League. Secondly, Chelsea's defence up until Game Week 4 didn't really look very impressive at all, did they? Thirdly, even though Chilwell picked up a goal and an assist in that game, his 1 game that he's played, he did it with a pretty low expected goals and pretty low expected assists as well. So yeah, not highly indicative of things to come, but it kind of suggests it might have been his lucky day. It might have been his lucky day on that Game Week 4 occasion against Crystal Palace, rather than something that's going to happen every single game. But that said, there are some things I liked a lot when I saw him play. So firstly, Chelsea's backline look a lot better, don't they? Much improved. They've got Azpilicueta back fit. They've got Thiago Silva ready to go. They've got a new goalkeeper, of course. And, you know, Ben Chilwell is a part of that. He's back fit. He's ready to play as well. So does that mean that they're finally going to be able to start picking up some clean sheet points? I think there's a good chance of that. So good time to jump on the Chelsea defence, really. Another thing I like about Ben Chilwell is he's playing super attacking down that left channel, and considering he's come on as sort of a direct replacement for Marcos Alonso, an FPL point scoring machine, again, this is a really good sign. So something we can't say about Azpilicueta and Reece James on the other side, who probably operate a similar kind of role, really bombing forward. Those guys are kind of likely to rotate a little bit, and Chilwell seems you know, he seems like he's going to be nailed on as well. I also like that he was taking corners, which is another great string to his bow, and he's got some fantastic fixtures coming up as well, particularly on the defensive side, which means for clean sheets. Surely he's got sort of Sheffield United and Burnley coming up, and you do think Chelsea can keep clean sheets in those games. So all in all, I think there's a lot to be excited about with Chilwell as an FPL option, and it's a great time to grab him before the masses do. So let's move on to our next pick. Again, a low ownership player, and not an obvious one. It's Neal Maupay. He's kind of my preference over Callum Wilson and Ollie Watkins. I know a lot of people are going for Callum Wilson and Ollie Watkins ahead of Maupay, but let me tell you why I prefer Maupay. So here, on FPL, we do try to get ahead of the curve a little bit, for sure, but I'm not just doing it to be, you know, to be different, to be controversial. I'm going to try and what I'm going to try and do for you today is try and compare those three players, so Maupay, Wilson, and Watkins, using statistics. And we'll go from game week 2, onwards, because obviously Aston Villa and Ollie Watkins didn't play in game week 1. They blanked that game week, of course. But you will have to trust me when I say that even if you include game week 1, still makes Maupay look better. But we'll go from game week 2 for simplicity's sake. So, out of the three players that I've just mentioned, total shots, Maupay 11, Watkins 10, Wilson 5. So Maupay winning that one. Shots on target, Maupay 6, Watkins 4, Wilson 3. Big chances, Watkins and Wilson both have 5, Maupay's had 4. So yeah, Watkins and Wilson do marginally beat Maupay on that statistic. But let's go to expected goals. Maupay 2.89, Wilson 2.57, Watkins 2.2. Big chances created, Maupay 1, Wilson and Watkins on 0. So expected assists, which is sort of related stat, I guess. Maupay 0.94, Watkins 0.48, and Wilson all the way down on 0.3. The only stat that Watkins looks good on, actually, is the non-penalty expected goals, which is really just off the back of that game against Liverpool. And, you know, penalties do happen, don't they? But, you know, Watkins is not a penalty taker, which is a bad thing, I guess, current season when we're thinking a lot about penalties. And also, he's not the main guy in his team. So you think about main players in a team, and you're probably talking about Grealish at Aston Villa, aren't you, surely? Whereas Maupay, he's kind of the main man in the attack for Brighton. Wilson, I think there is an argument to say he's the main man in attack for Newcastle as well. So you do want to look out for main men in a team, because they're usually the guys that are going to be picking up the majority of the bonus points as well, just as a very loose general rule, I guess. So yeah, Maupay, Wilson, both of those things. So overall, what I'm saying is, statistically speaking, Maupay has looked like the better option so far. In terms of actual points on the board, Maupay has the most out of the three. And you know, perhaps most interestingly, Maupay and Brighton in general, I guess, have had by far the hardest fixtures of the three players. They've already played Chelsea, Manchester United, and Everton. That's a really tough run, to be fair. So I think all three of these guys are really great options. I think they're the three best forwards in their price range. But it seems to me that Maupay looks on paper like the best FPL option of the three. And I suspect that the only reason that he's being overlooked in favour of Wilson and Watkins is because Wilson and Watkins scored higher points in the most recent game week. And you can't just use one game week, the most recent game week, as data. One game week is not really data. And, you know, based on what I've seen so far, there is quite a lot of available data. And what I've seen so far, Maupay is my second favourite forward to have in your team. Full stop, really. I know it's a big shout. You know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is the number one choice, obviously. But, big shout, I've said it now, Maupay, my second favourite forward right now to have in your FPL team. So, make of that what you will. So, let's move on to some sells. We'll start off with Timo Werner. Again, obviously, this is not the first time he's been on this list. But, you know, there's still a big portion of people holding on to him in hope that he turns things around. He suddenly starts scoring. And I think it's fair to say that eventually he will score a goal in the Premier League. He's not going to blank forever. The signs that he's coming soon are just not really there. And I want to try and convince some of you guys that are holding on to Werner to perhaps let go. So his stats don't seem to be getting any better. In fact, they're arguably getting worse. He managed just one shot, despite Chelsea being dominant in that 4-0 win against Palace last game. One shot he had all game. He's been shifted out to, you know, either wing, really. Sometimes he's playing even deeper, sort of in a kind of a midfield-ish role. And Tammy Abraham seems to have replaced him as the main striker, and he's genuinely looking like a better FPL asset, to be fair. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination go for Abraham instead, but he's looked like more of a goal threat and more of a creative force than Werner so far. So if you still do have Werner, I urge you to stop fearing that, you know, he's eventually going to score when you take him out. It will happen, he will score eventually, but you have to ask yourself, who is likely to score more goals during the time that you're waiting for Werner to finally score? And I think the list is pretty good in terms of forwards. If you don't have Calvert-Lewin yet, that's a very easy switch Werner to Calvert-Lewin, bring him in, you know, spend the remaining money elsewhere. If you have, you know, maybe a bit of spare budget, you can upgrade to Harry Kane. He looks like a better option right now. Or you can go right down, buy one of the 6.5 million strikers I was talking about earlier, and, you know, bank a load of money and invest that elsewhere into your team. So strikers are picking up, forwards in general, they're picking up a lot of FPL points right now, and Werner is kind of wasting a spot in that forward line. And it's going to take something pretty big for me to change my mind on Werner, I think. Patience, I think, could potentially cost you here. So sell, sell, sell. And speaking of sells, here's my other sell, and it's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. And as an Arsenal fan, and, you know, Aubameyang as my favourite player, it gives me absolutely no pleasure to advise on selling him, but around a quarter of FPL players still have Aubameyang in their teams. He's always capable of scoring, but my issue is he's very expensive for what he's currently offering. So he's not really currently offering very much. He's still the second most expensive player in FPL, remember, and despite playing 90 minutes in four out of 4 of Arsenal's games so far, well, first of all, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist, but, you know, underlying stats say it's not even looking particularly impressive. So he's had 6 shots in 4 games as the second most expensive player in the game. Now, we know Aubameyang doesn't necessarily need a lot of chances to score goals, but when he's playing, you know, so wide, Aubameyang is he's not getting a lot of chances to score goals. Arsenal as a team, I guess, are not really creating enough chances, and out of those chances, far fewer than you would hope for are being granted to Aubameyang. So I hope things will change, obviously, as an Arsenal fan, but right now, he's not looking like a good FPL option, especially when there are some other premium options that are playing really well so far. So think Salah, Mane when he's declared healthy, Son doing really super well, and even Sterling potentially as well. So all of these players look clear of Aubameyang in terms of what it takes to be a great FPL option. You know, even a captaincy option, you're wasting a slot on, you know, a premium captain option as well. So yeah, along with my other sell, Werner, I think these two guys have been really disappointing this season. Potentially the 2 biggest disappointments of the season, to be honest. But that's fine. Shift them on, make positive transfers, and, you know, adapt to any new information, because that's the difference between, I guess, a good FPL manager and a great one. Let's see how it goes. So now let's move on to some keeps, and my first keep is Kevin De Bruyne. Now, he's blanked in 2 consecutive games now, which has obviously disappointed a lot of people. For that reason, he's the second most transferred out player this week. Oh, that's scary. That is scary. Now, the thing is, he's not actually playing badly, and it doesn't actually seem like he's out of form in the same way as perhaps Aubameyang is. I agree that Manchester City in general look kind of out of form, but with a team like that, surely they're going to turn it around soon. De Bruyne, on the other hand, he's looked pretty sharp, and he looks like he could get a goal contribution at any moment now, and perhaps he's just been a little bit unlucky to not get a goal contribution, I guess. In the 2 weeks where he has blanked, his stats they've honestly really not been that bad. So in the 2 weeks where he's blanked, 7 shots, 3 of those in the box, 8 key passes, 1 big chance created, and 0.92 expected goals and assists, which usually he would be outperforming. City also haven't had any penalties across those 2 games, which obviously KDB would take, along with, you know, some potentially threatening free kicks and corners maybe. You know, add those decent stats to his great performance in game week 2, and you can see that this is not really a player that you need to get rid of. It's just a player that's kind of been unlucky to not really score anything in the last couple of game weeks. Now, I'm not saying I would be bringing in KDB into my team necessarily if I didn't have him, but if I did have KDB in my team, I'm not on a wild card or anything, I'd probably be fairly confident that removing KDB would not be my best use of a transfer. Remember, a transfer is a very precious thing. It's a precious commodity. Because, yeah, just because he's not scoring points doesn't automatically mean he's playing bad. He's actually playing quite well. And I back KDB to start picking up some points soon, and considering he's playing, you know, one of his favourite opponents, Arsenal, this game week, scary for me. It seems like a weird time to sell. 3 goals in 2 Premier League games against Arsenal last season. Can KDB do it again? Let's give him another week. Let's give him another chance, and we'll see. And until then, we'll move on to our next keep, and that is Raul Jimenez, another player who's blanked in 2 consecutive game weeks now. Another player who, unlike some of the other players that are blanking, his statistics actually look pretty good, and I think you can put a lot of it down to bad luck. So he is a great player. He will come good and score again. And it's very easy to forget that he actually scored in game weeks 1 and 2. So even though he blanked in the second 2 game weeks, he scored in the first 2 game weeks. And maybe if you muddled the order of those games, people might not be so keen to sell if he maybe scored 1, blanked, scored, and then blanked. You'd say, "Oh, that's fine. Goal every other game." But because of the order of things, yeah, I kind of get why people are tempted to sell, I guess. But yeah, like I say, I think he's been perhaps unlucky to have not scored in the game since. I think he's had a few really good chances where he could have scored. But yeah, overall, 2.1 expected goals so far this season. So he's expected to score over a goal every other game. 0.35 expected assists. So you feel an assist is coming his way relatively soon. A 50% goal involvement. Even higher expected goal involvement. So if Wolves are scoring, that means there's a 50% chance that Jimenez is either going to get the goal or the assist. Plus penalties, of course. We've spoken a lot about the importance of penalties so far this season. Wolves haven't had one yet. And if they do, Jimenez is going to be taking it and more than likely scoring it because he's a really good penalty taker. So whilst I understand why he's one of the most transferred outs this game week, because most people will simply look at how many points has he gotten recently, and that's 2 points in 2 games. That's no good, really. But really, there is a lot more under the surface that suggests that Jimenez, perhaps unlike someone like Werner, he's not quite done yet. He's not quite the time to move him on. And he's very much still on the ball. He's ready to score, and he probably will score sooner rather than later. So if you do believe that Wolves are going to do well, then Jimenez is going to be a big part of that. And he's got some really good fixtures in the immediate term. I think hold on to him for now because I do think he'll turn it around. And he's only been 2 game weeks blanking, for God's sake. Let's give him a bit of a chance. But anyway, let's move on to my avoids. As always, the scary ones, the avoids. They're always a bit controversial. So my first avoid is Jamie Vardy. One of the most popular transfers in this week, I guess due to his incredibly misleading FPL stats. 5 goals in 4 matches. Some people even talking about how he should have won Player of the Month for September. I think that's mind-boggling that some people think that, but, everyone's entitled to their opinion. The points he's been scoring so far in FPL they're just not sustainable. They're not sustainable at all. And this is because 4 of his 5 goals have been from penalties. Do you really think Leicester are going to be, averaging 1 penalty per game all season for 38 penalty goals for Jamie Vardy? I don't think so somehow. And if you've watched Leicester this season at all, you'll know that Vardy is just not really involved in any attacks whatsoever, really. And he just generally hasn't looked a threat at all. So in terms of stats, outside of penalties, they look worse than Werner's, to be honest. Let's have a look at this. So 17 touches in the box so far this season. So yes, that's less than Werner. 3 shots. That's 3 shots this season, excluding penalties. That's much less than Werner. Or pretty much any Premier League player for that matter. Just 1 shot on target in 4 matches. Remember, this is all outside of penalties. 10 successful passes in the final third. Yeah. He's just not involved in Leicester attacks at all outside of penalties, is what I'm saying. And unless you truly, truly believe that Vardy is going to break all penalty records by 2 or 3 times this season, why would you spend 10.1 million on him when you can have, Harry Kane for around the same price, or, a list as long as my arm of players that are outperforming Vardy right now? So look beyond the points on the FPL board. Sometimes they're trying to trick you into bad transfers. Sometimes they're trying to troll you. And Jamie Vardy is a trap. He's a troll right now. So try not to fall into that one, mates. And then finally, I've been saving this one for last. James Rodriguez. It's the most controversial pick of the entire video. I know exactly what you're thinking. What kind of lunatic would recommend avoiding a player who has just scored 18 FPL points with 2 goals and an assist in the game week prior? It's madness, isn't it? It's madness. Why would I say such a thing? But I do have my reasoning. But first, I do want to sort of preface this by saying James Rodriguez is a fantastic football player and a fantastic player to have in your fantasy team as well. If you're on a wild card, get him. If you've already got him, keep him and don't let him go. But if you're thinking about using one of your free transfers or potentially taking a hit to transfer him in, do so with a great degree of caution. So, the more I think about it, Rodriguez is not so much of an avoid as he is a transfer in at your own peril. So let me explain. So tonight, James Rodriguez will be playing a South American international game in Chile, halfway across the world. This game won't finish till around 3:30 AM UK time, and then he's got to fly back halfway across the globe, back to Everton, back to Liverpool I guess, readjust his sleeping pattern, rest, train potentially, and then play in the early kickoff, the first game of the game week against Everton's deadly rivals and the current champions, Liverpool. Now when I put it like that, it doesn't really sound like such a great time to be bringing him in. I'm not saying don't bring him in, I'm saying perhaps this game week isn't the game week to bring him in. And, you know, it's a really good example of using the human factor to make decisions in FPL rather than just looking at what's going on in the Premier League. Even Everton manager Carlo Ancelotti, he said that, he kind of acknowledged the possibility that James will not recover in time for game week 5. And there's a good chance that if he's not fully fit, if he's not ready to go, he will just go on the bench. So, what I'm saying is, he's a fine FPL option, but in this week in particular, he's a bit of a risky one. And at the very least, try and make sure you have, I guess, a backup option just in case James does not play. If he does come off the bench, prepare yourself for a 1-pointer because that is a real strong possibility. And I would say, if you are dead set on bringing Rodriguez in, despite this warning, then I guess you leave your transfer as late as physically possible where we can find out some potential new information, some up-to-date information about Rodriguez's physical condition. Because, like I said, he's got to fly back, he's got to rest. It's a really short turnaround between an international game halfway across the world and the first early kickoff in the Premier League. So a really short turnaround time. And you know, you wouldn't expect him to have his greatest ever game in this game against Liverpool, and you completely understand it if he didn't have a good game this game week. So there's your warning. There's the controversial one. I hope what I've said makes sense. Obviously, make your own decisions, of course, but yeah, a little warning there for you guys. So there you go. Those are my picks on buying, selling, keeping, and avoiding for this game week. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you do leave a like before you leave the video. If you're new around here, please do consider subscribing for more tips like this and more stuff around FPL in general. I'm still on my wildcard. I still need to talk to you guys about my wildcard, which I'll be doing in a later video this week. I'm still going to do a captain's video. I might even do a deadline stream this week, just because I'll be making final changes to my wildcard. It might be kind of exciting. So potentially do a deadline stream this week as well. So hope to see you guys there. Check out my description for Twitter, Instagram. Join them in the mini league and supporting me on Patreon. All available down there. And aside from that, I hope you guys are enjoying the international break. Really looking forward to getting back into FPL this weekend. Come on, let's go. Plenty more videos to come, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.